Hey, what's up, guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. I don't have much time. I have to get a Canary Cry Radio episode published, and I have Age of Deceit 3 that I'm continuing to work on and putting together some awesome sections. But in any case, I wanted to briefly talk about this Alex Jones thing. I recorded a Canary Cry conversation that we'll be publishing as well later on. Just this morning, I was kind of ranting and rambling about this whole thing with Basil, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of what I got into there, but I do want to share something interesting with you because this is a very interesting phenomenon, and there's something much, much bigger going on here in terms of tearing down the Constitution. And that's kind of the surface level, like, yeah, this is the beginning of it. Alex Jones deserved to have his platform back, and here's proof that, because he's being taken down. But the flip side of it is, remember that we're living in this really, really weird time where stuff is planned. Everything is propaganda, okay? And I mean that literally, okay? Now, I want you guys to consider something. This is the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. This was published on the bbg.gov website, Broadcasting Board of Governors. All right, now, in December 28th, 2012, this bill was passed. Okay, I want you to remember that date, December 28th, 2012. All right? Now, it says here, the Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors are authorized to use funds appropriated or otherwise made available for public diplomacy info programs to provide for the preparation, dissemination, and use of info intended for foreign audiences abroad about the United States, its people, and its policies. There it is. Through press publication, radio, motion pictures, the internet, and other information media, including social media, and through info centers, instructors, and other direct or indirect means of communication. That's pretty much everything, folks. Everything that you guys and myself as well, everything we do online every single day, it is washed completely with propaganda, and it is completely legal. And what the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was, it reversed certain things that were put in place so that central authorities like the Broadcasting Board of Governors can't use funds to influence opinion publicly. And in fact, if you look at some papers of the back and forth arguing that was going on before this was passed, this is a paper published on September 21st, 2012. U.S. Public Diplomacy Legislative Proposals to Amend Prohibitions on Disseminating Materials to Domestic Audiences. Just a friendly way of saying a way to legalize propaganda in America, okay? And if you go down, there's a section here where it talks about the critics of this modernization and what they were saying, okay? Now remember, this paper is arguing that these things that they are mentioning as critiques from the other side are not worthy of consideration and should be, or maybe worth consideration, but certainly not deterrent of putting this Modernization Act in place. But it says here, critics of rescinding the domestic dissemination ban state that this approach will lead to a merging of the now separate domestic public affairs and foreign public diplomacy missions of the State Department and expand the BBG's foreign news reporting role to include a domestic audience. While this merging of foreign and domestic audiences may merely reflect a reality about the current global reach of almost every type of info and communication technology, it can be argued that it might pose a problem for the established historical mission of U.S. public diplomacy and U.S. international broadcasting in informing foreign publics about the U.S. to advance U.S. foreign policy and national interests. A merged mission to inform domestic and foreign audiences may at first seem an efficient use of resources, some argue, but in time, info programs will focus ever increasingly on the informing, if not outright influencing, of the domestic audience, as domestic opinion is much more important from the perspective of the political power and support of the government of a given administration. Targeting foreign publics with effective communication will take a backseat in this scenario, they assert, to building political support in domestic constituencies. And, yeah, that makes sense. Like, hey, if you allow this, the critics say in this paper, basically the foreign propaganda that is received, well, they'll be allowed to do the same sort of thing in the U.S. And that's exactly what's happened. And that's exactly why you see President Trump doing the things he does on Twitter. I think he understands that this is the climate now. This is the temperament. And, people always talk about, oh my gosh, this is the world now. Oh, well, this is partly why. It's because of this amendment. and people just don't talk about it. But anyway, this is about Alex Jones, right? I'm giving you all this back info because we're talking about propaganda. We're talking about a way for an agenda, a bigger agenda, to continue moving forward despite the fact that there seems to be progress or hindrance happening in one way or another. Now, I want you guys to remember December 28th, 2012, okay? A couple weeks later, January 7th, 2013, Alex Jones appeared on Piers Morgan. Now, I don't know if you guys were around at that time. I know I was. And I remember thinking like, whoa, dude, what is going on? Why is Alex Jones playing out the caricature that critics of him have stated for years? And, you know, the suspicion has been there all along, but I think this event solidifies a much bigger play. And who knows what's going to come about. But either way, I think the information that we share, my personal opinions and beliefs that I share, are completely under threat. I've known that for years. People that are that go around in these parts, you guys know that this has been a thing for a long time. So it's nothing new to us. But the question that we should be asking is, why now? What is the reason they brought this hammer down now? And talk about being able to play the victim to do it on the same day they dropped an atom bomb on Nagasaki, which happened to be a Christian, you know, even though it was Catholic, it was the closest thing to a Christian community in Japan, and they decided to drop a nuke right on top of that area there. Why did they do that? Because they can play a perfect victim card for one, but there's something else going on, folks. And I'm not quite sure I know what it is, okay? I don't know. I'm not claiming to know, but things are getting very interesting, and information, independent information, like truly independent, just opinions, it's going to become harder. There are other platforms that are growing because of this fact, but in terms of trying to help regular folks, your mainstream people, wake up to the reality of the situation, it's becoming harder and harder to do because the platforms by which all these mainstream people are, all the public are congregated at, are using censorship and using and abusing their power. And they brought out the Alex Jones card right now. Why? It's a really important question to ask. And I hope it makes you guys think about this, because remember, this is a spiritual battle. Okay. The war, you know, they always, Infowars always talk, oh, it's information out there. It's a war out for your mind. You know, they kind of, man, it sucks because that is a true statement. Okay. To actually commercialize it like that is something else. But it is true that this is a war out for your mind. He wasn't lying about that. And I want you to keep in mind Romans 8:5. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. Verse 6. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. So if you can understand what's going on just at the level of the flesh, you're only satisfying your flesh, and that leads to death. So what's the point of understanding all the fleshly things going on? The important thing is to understand what is happening spiritually. And once you do that, you'll start recognizing that there is a massive, massive deception at play here in all directions. And it's important for each one of us to strengthen our personal relationship with the Father and really just be in the Word, and of course, physically prepare, but be led by the Holy Spirit in all these actions, because time is coming, folks. And it's already here pretty much. I mean, this is the writing on the wall at this point, where your own knowledge, your own ability to understand the situation and to react accordingly, the ability to do that is going to become a tool of necessity to survive, as people who have been stripped of those capabilities will just become part of the hive mind, sadly. And I think this is prophetic in that there is this giant culling of human souls that will happen at the end times, that these souls will be deceived into literally abandoning their image of God into accepting the image of the beast. And this is a real thing that's taking place. And these are just signposts to a much, much bigger thing going on. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Thank you guys for your support. Again, shorter video, but I got other things being published in other places. Look out for those things. And again, stay tuned for Age of Deceit 3. I'm trying my best to get it out before the end of the year. It's going to be pretty awesome. I got some pretty cool stuff lined up for it. So that's about it. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless.